A very good morning to you and a warm welcome to the Nssf annual members meeting, the 5th annual members meeting this morning that will be taking place in a couple of minutes. We are just a couple of minutes away. We will be crossing over live into the Victoria Hall at the Kampala Serena Conference Centre shortly. But with me is the Managing Director, the man in the centre of this, the Managing Director in the National Social Security Fund, Richard Berogaba. Richard, very good morning. Thank you for joining us. Your smile tells the story of the last 12 months, because around the same time last year, we were looking at some good results. But this year was totally unexpected. Yes. You collected for the very first time 100 billion shillings in a month.
Yes.
It's been a fantastic year for you.
It was good. It was good. Actually, totally blown our expectations. The market was very tough. As you know, the Minister of Finance announced that they were going to revise down the growth rates.
Yes.
I think it went below 4%.
Yes, 3.5. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we felt that we were going to suffer. There had been a lot of closures in business. The exchange rate, although stable, because it had lost a lot of value, we felt that it was not encouraging people to import, or importations were actually expensive. And then thirdly, credit was shrinking because a lot of the NPLs, you remember that's when there was a lot of bailouts. So we felt that companies were going to struggle, especially paying the Nssf contributions. But, you know, the numbers show that that didn't happen. Actually, we performed really well. Balance sheet almost hit 8 trillion shillings. We grew by 1.4 trillion shillings. 20%, and we're going to pay a very good rate when my minister announces it.
That's what we are looking for. I mean, that's the highlight for today's annual members meeting.
Yeah.
But take us through what we should expect today, because we know the Auditor General will share his audited books of account,
yes.
But we want to know what exactly should members expect, because you've done very well in the last 12 months. Should they be looking forward to another great 12 months?
Well, we know that last year was good for us, even though the economy was bad. We are beginning to see a lot of recovery. The economy is recovering. The stock markets have recovered as well. I know that the geopolitics in Kenya is not helping, certainly on the stock markets and some of the stock exchange companies that are listed in Uganda. But overall, we are beginning to look at some positive growth. We are now also beginning on our big projects. Only this week we announced Lubowa, and we think that the projects that we started last year, including the commercial property in Jinja, we should then begin to see our diversification process ongoing. We recovered a lot of the land that we previously had lost through the Nssf estate. So this year is looking a lot better. The numbers are on target, certainly for the first 3 months of our financial year. So I'm hoping that this year will be another great year. Touch wood, as they say.
Yeah, let's look at some of the concerns out there, and we expect, because this is an annual members meeting, we expect that some of the members will have some concerns on how their money is being spent.
Yes.
But also those of you who are watching us, because this in a few minutes we will be crossing over to Victoria Hall, so we'll share with you live pictures out of the Victoria Hall, which really looks beautiful in the Nssf colors. The main concern for a member or members will be whether you're playing too safe.
Yes.
And that you're investing most of their money in the obvious places, and not taking a little more risk, which could give them a little more returns.
Yeah. I think that's a very good concern. In fact, when I share the numbers, you notice that our biggest growth was in the safe area, fixed income. But that's largely because there have been very few deals. We were very excited when we heard there was going to be a new company listing on the stock exchange. That talk appears to have died down. You remember the Quality Chemical Company? I think that's public news now. So there've been very little in terms of public equities coming onto to the space. We've had a couple of discussions with government on some of their big projects, the oil projects, the energy projects, the road projects, to see if we can get some structure in. That is still a work in progress. But at the end of the day, that will perhaps not give us as much as we think. And we think that the area where we can get huge returns is investing in companies, both private equity and public equities. And unfortunately, that space has been very restricted in this country. We are trying to diversify, as I said, into real estate, but real estate, has wide swings in terms of cycles, and sometimes if you put a lot of exposure in that sector, especially with an oversupply, then you might end up, burning your fingers. So we will still err on the cautious side because this is pension money. We have to invest for the long term. We are building capacity. You'll notice that we've increased our exposure to some of the equities. People like DFCU. There's been a rights issue. We've increased our shareholding in there. There's been we bought a little bit more in Stanbic Bank. We've also bought a little bit more in Umeme, which now has become an associate as a result of that. So yes, we are looking for the deals. We are also working very hard on our private equity. We invested about 2 million euro in an equity fund that is targeting agriculture. We think that there's a huge potential in agriculture. But Maurice, I can tell you that it's not easy finding good deals in this country that are safe and that can give you a good return for your members and that actually target the long term rather than the short term.
All right. So let's look at some of the assets you have, and maybe one of the organizations which is on the stock exchange, which was on the stock exchange, that you probably want to tell us more about. Let's discuss Uganda Clays.
Yeah.
Yes, your engagement there, because
Yes.
there was a conversation for you to increase your portfolio in Uganda Clays.
Yes, we have increased our portfolio by converting our debt into equity, and I believe that the issue there continues to be market segmentation. We believe that Uganda Clays are a very focused company. They're a premium company. Their products are still enjoyed by the rich of Uganda, and therefore they are willing and able to pay for that extra premium. And we think that by restructuring the company last year, for the first time, they declared a dividend, and we think that looking at the sales focus this year, we think that they will continue to perform very well. They need some major investment in their factory in Kamonkoli, basically to put right the installation there, and we think that once that is done, they should be able to then continue to really perform well, especially in the expanding sector of building and construction.
All right, we must let you go because everyone is waiting for you. You're the man on demand. But before that, I really wanted to ask, as we move into 2018, and we will be looking at how you can bring down the cost of doing your business, the cost of running your business, because you're doing well in the contributions, but also in that space you're saying you can actually collect more.
Yes.
And then you can also bring down your cost of doing business in terms of your expenses, so that you can become a more efficient and effective fund body.
I think we've begun on that journey. If you look at our assets under management ratio, basically expenses over assets under management, we've consistently brought that one down. This year it will be around 1.31%. Obviously, as the asset base grows, it means it gives us a little bit of leverage. But one of the big things we need to do this year is to invest in software. Our software has been giving us slight issues, especially on the suspense side. So some investment will be required this year, a major investment. But apart from that, I think that we are continuing to do very well on the issue of costing. And you will also see that on the issue of compliance, which is what drives our business, we continue to improve that. We've now hit 80%.
Wow.
That means that 80% of all the companies that are on our book are now contributing. And our target is to try and take that to about 90%, but that will be sometime
That's
coming.
a tall order.
Yeah.
All right, Richard, we must let you go. We will be crossing very shortly. Actually, we are crossing now to the Victoria Hall, where the annual members meeting will be taking off a few minutes from now without the MD, who will be crossing over in a few minutes. Let's now cross in and watch the proceedings. You can follow the whole conversation online, on social media, and on screen, because we bring you this live, using the hashtag NSSFAMM17.
Welcome to the 5th Nssf Annual Members Meeting.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us. You're welcome to the 2017 Nssf Annual Members Meeting. My name is Ben Mwine, and wherever you're joining us from, to our TV audience, you're very welcome. The Nssf is a national savings scheme mandated by the government through the Nssf Act, and the basic principle is to make sure that we provide social security services to employees throughout Uganda. The mandate of the Nssf is to protect you and make sure that you're protected against the vagaries and uncertainties of social and economic life, as we very well know here in Uganda. And the Nssf is a provident fund. What that means is that you get lump sums paid out to you for your contributions throughout a period of time, and it covers all employees in the private sector as well as NGOs. And starting this year, you can actually have voluntary contributions for as little as 5,000 shillings. So no excuse for you not to save. Since 2011, what the fund has been doing is making a commitment to be transparent and accountable, not just to its members, but to its stakeholders and the general public as well. What that means basically is that through the annual members meeting today, you will get to expect a report from the management and the board of the Nssf about the financial performance over the last year in terms of how we have done with your money, with our money, and how it has grown over the last few years. You also get an audited report from the Auditor General showing that these figures are actually accurate and that your money is actually safe and intact, and most importantly, that your money is growing to guarantee a better life for you. We'll also get, most importantly, as a member, an opportunity for you, wherever you are, whether here at the Kampala Serena Hotel or anywhere else around the world, to join in the discussion and share your views, your criticisms, and your suggestions on how we can be able to improve the management of the fund and how to better invest your money. That's what you can expect at the annual members meeting that starts right now. Welcome once again. Our hashtag, in case you're following us on social media, is NSSFAMM17. That is hashtag NSSFAM17. You can follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, and we are live as well online as you join us. Some highlights from the last AMM suggest that the fund has been growing in leaps and bounds over the last 6 years. For example, the revenue received has grown to almost 1 trillion shillings every year now, and that's very remarkable, and I think deserves a very, very big hand clap. But not only that, in terms of contributions received, we've seen that go up now to the fund managing assets of almost 8 trillion shillings. That's a staggering number and worthy of applause as well. What that basically means is that our money is making money, and that's a very good thing. But even as we make this money, we've also ensured that compliance over the years has grown and is very, very steady and stable. But also, the number of members that are contributing to the fund has grown very steadily, with more than 150,000 members added in just the last year alone, which is also very remarkable. But also starting this year, as you will hear, we've now started receiving voluntary contributions. If you have a company that has more than 5 people, you can voluntarily contribute to the fund for as little as 5,000 shillings. Like I said, no excuse for anyone not to save. And so that's a very good thing, and we thank the Nssf for that. As we get started, let's get right into it with the presentation of the audit opinion from the Auditor General's office. And this will be presented by the Director of Audit at the AG's office. And I want you to warmly welcome with us as we get started Mr. Joseph Hiria, who is the Director of Audit at the Auditor General's office, to come and give us an audit opinion for the financial year. Welcome, Mr. Hiria.
The chairman of the board of the fund, members of the board, senior management, and the members of the fund. Good morning. My name is Joseph Hiria. I'm a director of audit at the Office of the Auditor General, and I'll be presenting the audit opinion on behalf of the Auditor General. So this is the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the National Social Security Fund for the year ended 30th June 2017. The report is addressed to the Right Honourable Speaker of Parliament. Part A of this report sets out my opinion on the financial statements. Part B, which forms an integral part of this report, presents in detail all the significant audit findings made during the audit, which have been brought to the attention of management. Part A, opinion. I have audited the financial statements of National Social Security Fund, which comprise the statement of net assets available for benefits as at 30th June 2017, and the statements of changes in net assets available for benefits, changes in members' funds and reserves, and cash flows for the year then ended, and notes to the financial statements, which include a summary of significant accounting policies as set out on pages 9 to 79. In my opinion, the financial statements give a true and fair view of the financial position of National Social Security Fund as at 30th June 2017, and of its financial performance and its cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with international financial reporting standards and the Uganda Retirement Benefits Regulatory Authority Act. Basically, what that means is that the fund has managed to achieve a clean opinion. Basis for opinion. I conducted my audit in accordance with international standards on auditing. My responsibilities under those standards are further described in the auditor's responsibilities for the audit of financial statements section of my report. I'm independent of the fund in accordance with the International Ethics Standards Board for Accountants Code of Ethics for Professional Accountants, together with ethical requirements that are relevant to my audit of the financial statements in Uganda. And I have fulfilled my other ethical responsibilities in accordance with those requirements and the code. I believe that the audited evidence I've obtained is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for my opinion. Emphasis of matter. I draw attention to note 35B of the financial statements, which indicates that the fund is challenging the basis on which Uganda Revenue Authority disallowed certain expenses in calculating the fund's tax assessment during the year ended 30th June 2013. The note also indicates that the directors have not recognized any provision for the liability of shillings 42.2 billion to URA, as management believes the tax treatment adopted by Nssf is in accordance with the provisions of Section 22(1)A and Section 25 of the Income Tax Act. The note gives details of the case and explains that the directors have disclosed a contingent liability as the ultimate outcome of the case cannot presently be determined. My opinion is not qualified in respect of this matter. My report in the prior year contained an emphasis of matter paragraph in this regard. Signed, John F. Mwanga, Auditor General. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hiria. A wonderful presentation, and it's good to know that we have a clean audit. I think that's the word you used. That's a very important word, ladies and gentlemen, because it's important to know that, especially when you're dealing with up to 8 trillion shillings in assets, that it's being handled well and managed properly. And it's now time for us to hear from the people who have been responsible for managing your money, our money, and from what we saw last year, did an amazing job and hopefully have done just as well this year. It's time for us to hear from the Managing Director at the National Social Security Fund. If you please welcome with me, Mr. Richard Yarugaba.
Good morning, everybody. The Honorable Minister, who is not here yet, my board chairman, my board members, our members, members of staff, the press, protocol observed, as they always say. Every year we try and have a selfie so that we can post it. So if you allow me, I'll just do that selfie where everybody is involved. So please put on your best smile and look this way. All right, so that's done. I'm going to post it on Twitter, so those of you who are there will probably see yourselves. So thank you so much for smiling. This year, I'd like to make presentation to basically explain the numbers. I know that those of you who are following us on TV, this might not be as exciting as what you've been watching on TV in the recent days, but I'm hoping that the numbers will basically excite you more than what you've been watching on TV. So my presentation will cover 5 areas. And the first one will talk a little bit about the environment. It's important for everybody to know that we've been operating in an environment in which obviously we make our business from, both in terms of our members and also in terms of what we invest. The environment is a very, very big factor. It affects our members, it affects our employers, but it also affects the places where we put the money in. I'll talk a little bit about the financial statement, the financial position, which is, those of you who are old school, the balance sheet. I'll then talk about the earnings or the statement of comprehensive income. I then show you or demonstrate what we've been able to do with the income we've made out of the money that we've invested. And then we will just talk a little bit about the future, specifically the future relating to this financial year, which we've already covered within the last 3 months. So the environment is almost summarized by one of the headlines that was run in a recent magazine, The Independent. Wasn't good. And the reason it wasn't good was because we've run out of the power. So I'm still waiting for the presentation to come up. So one of the issues we had in the last economy was obviously interest rates. As you recall, we started off on a high interest rate regime. The central bank gradually brought the number down, the what they call the CBR rate, that signals a drop in interest rates. But by that time, a lot of the companies had already been affected, because what was happening is that imports were weak. the shilling was strong, although it remained relatively comfortable. And that led to, as you recall, a couple of closures, including the Crane Bank and the big supermarket called Nakumat. So as you can see, that was a signal that all wasn't well within the economy. In fact, if you recall, the minister in his speech did actually reduce the growth rate to about 3.9% towards the end, and that was a revision from the 5% that they were anticipating. So largely speaking, it was a tough economic market, and that's the environment we had to operate in. Despite of that, we actually continued to grow, and as I will be able to demonstrate, we did perform reasonably well, much better than the economy. Just get this thing right, please. So, these numbers have already been read. Our members grew by 9%, almost 150,000 members. Our employer registration also went up by 14%. We had almost 3,000 employers who were registered on our database. But more impressively for me was our compliance levels. From a low of 49% about 6 years ago, our compliance levels have now improved to 80% from 77% the previous year. And that all meant that we were collecting a lot more. In fact, on average, we were collecting at least 77 billion shillings. And if you recall, at the end of the financial year in June, we did actually announce that our collections had reached a record 100 billion shillings in 1 month. So as a result of that, you'll notice that our contributions almost hit 1 trillion shillings. We collected 916 billion shillings within the year. So what did we put that money to? We put it into investments, and as you'll notice from our financial statements, those of you who are good at reading financial statements, our figures grew, our balance sheet grew by 20%. That is from 6.5 trillion shillings to 7.9 trillion shillings, almost touching the 8 trillion mark. We've already hit the 8 trillion mark, obviously, because these numbers are at the end of June. So quite exciting for us, and this was largely driven by the fact that we had a very good compliance level, as I have mentioned, and also our earnings. On a further slide, I'll be able to break down how much the balance sheet has grown out of money collected from our members and how much money has been earned from our investments. So, the next thing I would like to talk about is just the breakdown on the investments that we have been able to make. The first one is to show you that our balance sheet, if you look at it, 98% of our balance sheet is investment assets. In other words, that's money we've invested. So that means that only 2% of our balance sheet is in non-interest earning or non-revenue earning assets. And that's mostly cash, receivables, and properties that, property that we use in the office, property and things like equipment, and the intangible things like our software that we've been able to buy. Just one note, those of you who are curious, you must have seen that our cash balances did go up by 102%, and that was largely because we had a transaction of almost 40 billion shillings at the end of the month, money which we invested the following day. But as you know, the accountants, they look at the stuff that was there on the day when we closed our books. So not to give you the impression that we are holding cash that we've not invested. I'd like now to talk a little bit about some of the assets that we've invested in. We continue to be heavily weighted in the fixed income space. In fact, if you look, our portfolio is about 78% of all our money that we invest. That is held in fixed income investments, largely treasury bonds. We do not invest in treasury bills because treasury bills are short-term. Treasury bonds are more long-term, tend to be available at least for the foreseeable future, 25 years, 10 years, 15 years. And in some instances, in some markets like Kenya and Tanzania, we can get bonds which are beyond 15 years or even 20 years. This asset class also grew the most. It grew at about 21%, which basically means that we are putting more money onto the fixed income. The reason is largely, and I mentioned this on an interview I gave this morning, that we have very few opportunities outside of this asset class. And one of the risks we are now running is that the yields are falling, and therefore the rates of payment to this asset class will continue to decline. So that's one of the reasons we need to try and diversify our portfolio, as you will see in the following slides. So the other asset class in which we invest is the equities. That only grew by 18%. And it now constitutes 16%. As you will have noticed, the fixed income has taken over in terms of growth, and the areas that are suffering are both the equity and the real estate asset classes. You'll find that we increased our shareholding in some stocks, but specifically we made some new investments. We made investments in TBL. TBL is Tanzanian Breweries, which is in the Tanzania, as the name suggests. The other investment we did is in Umeme. We increased our shareholding. In fact, Umeme today, for those of you who are interested, reports as an associate because of the fact that we've exceeded 20% of our the shareholding of the company. We've also increased our shareholding in the former PTA Bank. It's now called TDB, which stands for Trade Development Bank. And we finally also increased our shareholding in Stanbic Bank, as you know, which performed quite well. But as a result of that, our holdings as a percentage of the total equity, of the total investment, stands at 16%, and that only grew by 18%, largely fueled by the new investments, but also the recovery within the market, as I will demonstrate a little bit later on when I talk about the income. Finally, our smallest portfolio continues to be held in our real estate. I know that this is the one that causes a lot of news, but unfortunately, fortunately, it's our smallest portfolio. At the moment, it constitutes about 7% of our holding, and it only grew by 13%, largely driven by our investment that we recovered of Nssf. Those of you who are old enough to remember, there was a joint venture that we had with Nssf that was challenged through courts, and it was declared null and void, and land resorted back to the owner of the land. So what happened is that we went to court and we were able to recover this land and also buy the part that didn't belong to us. So as a result of that, thank you. We can now build for the low-cost housing, basically, and also create another beautiful town as you go out of Kampala. So that cost us about 42 billion shillings overall in terms of value. And we also have been very busy in the works in progress, which contributes another about 17 billion shillings, bringing that increase of 13% on our real estate asset class. I don't know what that is. It's not me. Finally, I'd like to talk about the other side of the balance sheet, which is the claims or the liabilities. You'll have noticed that from the numbers, our fund contributes a significant part of our claims. That grew by 1.3 trillion shillings, and as I promised, that constituted 51% of interest that we are paying to members, and the 49%, or 642 billion shillings, that relates to the new contributions. Now, you might be wondering, why did the number come down from 906 billion shillings that we collected and the 642 billion shillings? That's largely because we have benefits that we've paid some people who've got to their age retirement dates, and they've been able to claim their money. So the other part of our liabilities involves provisions, very small number, and the other part is the healthy suspense or reserves that we've been able to create. One of the reasons we create these reserves, as the Auditor General mentioned in their report, there are a couple of cases that could go against us, and what we've done is that to try and provide a reserve so that if these cases go against us, we're able to pay off those liabilities. So the reserve has a very good use, but it's also used for smoothing out of the rates that we will be declaring in the future. So how did we earn this money from the different asset classes when we get the technology right? We get our money in 3 asset classes. The income from our fixed income constituted 86%, quite a large proportion. If you recall the numbers, 78% of our assets, but they deliver us 86% of the revenue, right? So remember that. That's why fixed income is very important for us. Equities, they constitute about 16% of our portfolio, but they provide us with 13% of our revenues. And real estate, which is a very small percentage of our income, only constitutes 1% of our revenue. So in terms of risk, all right, a lot of the risk is held within the fixed income asset class. As you can see, that's why interest rates coming down is not good news for us, although it's good news for the economy. And the reason for the flat rental income is because we have not been able to bring on board our properties, but as I said, we've begun on those projects, and hopefully we should begin to increase that number. Equities, because there was weakness within the market, you'll notice that our dividend income actually did go up by about 39%, which is very, very good. But the other area is also on the fair value valuation on our equity position. You'll notice that that came from a negative of 74 billion shillings to a positive of 22 billion shillings, which is a big rise of 129%. And that's because of the weak recovery of the equity markets. Our operations, when we get the money, we spend, and the largest item on there continues to be administrative costs. Those went up by 26%, but you'll also notice that we had some reductions in other operating expenses. The biggest expense actually that we did last year was on staff. We are investing in our staff. We've introduced performance-based pay, which is one of the reasons why you are seeing some good performances, especially on our collection side, because people are then required to go out into the market and get this additional business. And we believe that it's one way of really driving performance and getting our team to be focused. But the other area where we've also been spending money is making legal provisions. We've had a couple of legal cases. Some are very public and some are not very public, but we have had to make provisions in case these cases go against us. So this is probably not a very good slide for you to see if you are sitting very far, but just pay attention to the colors. The red color is the costs, which shows that over the last 6-7 years, our costs have been flat. The green color is the interest that we pay you, and the blue color is the revenues. You'll notice that there was a blip last year. We talked about that because of the markets, but as you can see, service has been resumed, and this year we had a trajectory going up. And as you can see, these are positive jaws. I'm sure you understand what that means. but it means that the numbers are good, and the steep earnings do not necessarily mean that we've had to increase our operating costs. And certainly the value has been passed on to the members because we are giving them a higher interest return, as hopefully will be demonstrated today. So how have we used the earnings? I chose that specific slide to define what frugal is, which is what we believe we've been. It is avoiding waste, in particular, the expenditure of money and use of material resources. Yeah, just for you to remember what we've been doing all this year. So this is how we've done it. So the total earnings have been were 912 billion shillings. We've just explained that we used 96 billion shillings for funding our operations. We paid government tax, mostly withholding tax, at 131 billion shillings. And guess what? We are transferring almost all our earnings back to our members as interest. So interest will be declared today, will cost us 681 billion shillings. Please clap, even if you don't want to. Okay? And what does this mean in numbers? So what I have done is I have got all the assets that we manage, and I have assumed that the assets we manage generate an income, and that income is generated as a percentage of the assets. So all our assets were able to, after we've paid tax, were able to generate us an income of 12.58%. So the next thing I then did is to say, how much did we spend on all our overheads? You remember the 96 billion shillings. So the 96 billion shillings represents 1.6% of our assets under management, or 12% of our earnings, right? So if you get our earnings of 912 billion shillings, that is 12%. So we spent 12%. That's what in other terms is called your cost to income ratio. The other thing we've done is obviously what are we giving to the members? So we are basically generating our interest to members, which I cannot announce because I'm not authorized to, but the minister will announce. It would have been there, but I can't. So the interest we're giving to members is a percentage which will come out of there, or 87% of our earnings. Now those of you who are clever might be able to work that one out. And then finally, we have retained some money, and what we've retained is only 1% of our earnings, or 0.03% of our net earnings. Okay, so that's how we've been distributing it. And the story is that we are distributing everything to our members because that's the reason why we exist. Just one more piece of number from the balance sheet. Sorry for the small letters, but that's just to demonstrate again what we've been able to do with the member fund. The member fund constitutes of special contributions. You'll see the number there. It contributes. It has members' contributions that are received in the year. That's the 916 billion shillings. It also shows you the amount of benefits we paid in the year. This year we paid 278 billion shillings. And if you look at the graph down there, you'll see that in the previous year we paid 200 and I can't see it from here. About 238 billion shillings. So the payments have also gone up, and that's largely because we've brought down the turnaround time for making those benefits. There's a little pie chart there which probably you won't be able to see, but just to show our members, and I know that every single time we make this presentation to our members, everybody says, oh, I will not get my money, I will be dead. But when you're not, the only time you are dead is when you get a survivor's benefit, and the survivor's benefit only is 3% of the amount of money we're paying out. So we will get our money, members who are in here. So, after having shared with you what our financial statements look like. I would like to share with you what we're planning for this year very, very briefly. So the first thing we're going to do is to continue to lay a strong foundation. We've been able to raise at least 8 trillion shillings within this fund. We continue to make sure that that trajectory goes forward. That basis is very strong for us, and we think that we can utilize that in making sure that we are sustainable in the long run. We'll do that by empowering our customers. Currently, we are constrained by the law in providing these mandatory benefits of survivor's benefit, age benefit, and also invalidity benefit. Our view is that Parliament should get round to approving the new bill that is currently before them that will now allow us to provide these new products. Okay, maternity benefit, housing benefit, unemployment benefit, critical illness benefit, and funeral benefit. These, we believe, will go a long way in ensuring that our members first of all, improve on their voluntary contributions, because one of the research findings for us was that a lot of members do not want to contribute to Nssf because they don't think that the benefits meet their needs. But if you look at the new benefits, those would cater for their birth, those would cater for their family, those would cater for their health, especially critical health, and we think that that will support a lot of our members to be able to produce, to voluntarily contribute to the Nssf. The other thing we'd also like to do is to introduce the voluntary contributions. I wanted to share with you the amount of effort we've been able to do over the last 12 months. We've grown the balances on voluntary contributions from about 99 million shillings to 440 million shillings, and I know that that doesn't look like a great deal, but we recently just launched this product and we've made it a lot easier by introducing the mobile phone as a delivery channel, and we think that that then means that members can do that in the comfort of their homes and their places of work without necessarily having to go to the bank in order to make voluntary contributions. We continue to improve on our processes. One of the things we did this year, and we are continuing to improve, is on the e-collection portal. This is meant to ease the payment of members' contributions, and that has reduced the time from which we are able to update, or a member is able to update their statement, from 48 hours to less than 7 hours. In fact, that number is about 3 hours. As I speak today, and we think that that will enable members to conveniently improve. We still have an issue with the government companies who constitute about 20% of our contributions, but we are working on a solution which we believe will implement before the end of this year, and therefore will have 100% compliance as far as the e-collections portal is concerned. Our greatest asset continues to be our people. We are engaging them, we are skilling them, we are introducing performance-based pay. In fact, our engagement is now at 84%. We always do a staff survey to find out how engaged they are, and that's a good number from a very low of about 50% a couple of years ago. And the community has also recognized us. This year we won the Employee of the Year award within the bronze for the bronze category, which is the third. And you know, just for information, we were competing with some of the top-notch companies in this country, including some of the multinationals. In fact, number 1 and number 2 are multinationals. So we believe that as a public company, we've been able to perform really well with regard to our people, and that's the reason why our results are looking that great. And our people continue to be a very good asset for us. Finally, we will continue to engage with our community. We do a lot of CSR, A couple of those examples, what hasn't been shown there is the run that we have where we raise money for the KCCA, and we'll continue to do that whenever we have an opportunity and engage with our community so that we know that the community is the one that provides us with our returns, and provides us with our contributions, and also provides us with our members and with our employers. So we will continue to engage with the community. And thank you so much for listening to me.
Let's give another big hand clap to Richard for, I think, a bigger hand clap. They've done a good job. Please remember, this is your money. And of course, the question would be, if we gave it to you and left it to you, would it be growing at the rate that Richard has talked about, or would it be sitting in a sewage plant somewhere in the form of digested beer or something? So we think that the fund has obviously done a very good job. Lots of highlights to pick up from the MD's presentation, and we'll be giving you an opportunity, of course, to get involved in that discussion, to ask questions about some of the things that he has talked about and the highlights from his report. You can do that via social media. Our hashtag is NSSF AMM17, that is hashtag NSSF AMM17. If you want to get in touch and you can be able to ask your questions, we'll have a Q&A session after a while where you'll get to interact with both our MD and the chair of the board as well, to sort of get insights into what's happening and of course going forward too. Now, one of the things that has been going on, in case you didn't know, Richard talked about the fact that you can be able to have access to your statement within about 3 hours of it being updated. There's a beautiful app called Nssf Go. So if you've got access to a mobile phone, you simply go to your phone and log in with your NSSF number, you get a password, and you're able to look at just how rich you are, even though you can't touch the money yet, obviously, which is why I am seeking leave of the fund to table a private member's bill to reduce the age limit at which we can be able to access our money. Since I don't see NHI as being broken, I believe it is seconded and thirded, and we can be able to go and table this motion. In fact, can we just pass it now? All in favor, say aye. Okay, so we shall reduce the age limit at which we can receive our money. Henceforth, we shall include that in the next financial year, obviously. No, but it's an amazing thing that when you go to this mobile app, you'll be able to access, to see how much money you actually have. And it's very interesting to see how the money grows as the months pile up. And it's a beautiful thing. One of the key questions that I'm looking forward to putting to the chair of the board and to Richard as well is the issue of voluntary contributions and what we can do about that, especially in Uganda, where we know that our saving culture is, well, to be honest, horrible. We just suck at saving money in this country. And the thing is, what can we do about that? And how can the NSSF help in doing that? Because when you do, you get to enjoy some really good benefits. And Richard mentioned that from 238 billion the previous year to 278 billion shillings paid out into members as benefits. It's a very, very big thing. We've been profiling some of the stories of the people who have done an amazing job with the money that they have received from the NSSF, in part of the people who are receiving this 278 billion shillings. And if you've been following this amazing TV show called Friends with Benefits, you'll have seen some of these inspirational stories. And we're going to share some of them with you starting right now, so you can enjoy some of the achievements that people have been able to make with their money coming from the NSSF.
I started saving with NSSF when I joined Care Uganda. That was 1994. Care yastopinga mu 2022. My husband passed away. That time was very challenging. When I did not have any work at all, I met NSSF staff who were sensitizing people around. They requested me to go to Kavari. And in Kavari, they just processed my check and I came back with my money. I received an age benefit. This is a house that I completed with the money that I got from NSSF. With this money, I also established a tea garden. I started with like 6 acres. Then from 6, I added 4 to make 10. Then I established another garden of 3 acres. Now in total, I have 13 acres of tea. It has also impacted onto the community because the community gets money from me, and it gives me a good name actually. When I'm passing by and say, "Hi, madam." This is Mr. Oscar Nimpereza Kasia, and as a little child, he used to visit me and got interested in what I was doing, especially with the tea. And he got a mind to start with tea nursery bed.
So about 3 years ago, I started slowly and small. And she used to come, motivate me, go see how she does. She gives me some of her workers to come and assist me, where I would have a few difficulties, and more so give me hope beyond hope, and gave me the necessary connections in terms of her supplying. And at the end of the first 1 year, I did the supply, and from there I've not looked back. Today I'm in position to supply close to over 500,000 seedlings. The people I've seen who have abandoned the nursery beds because of even having wrongful calculations, that because this nursery bed takes a whole year before you can offload it. So I want to believe that had it not been her effort in guiding me into this business, probably you never know, I would have even closed it halfway. I'm proud to have her for being around me to encourage, and my appeal is how to live longer and even encourage many more people in Kanungu.
We are at Kayonza Tea Factory, is where I deliver my tea, and I'm a shareholder of the factory.
We export our tea to the outside world through the Mombasa auction. A successful woman farmer like Florence Jamdisha, if you visited her farm, if you are a buyer, even if you are not from the field, you will know that this is superior quality of tea. So we rely on her deliveries. Florence was lucky to have worked and saved with Nssf.
I own cows, I have goats, I looked after the children, I sent them to school. At least I'm happy and proud that I received the money. When I see my tea plantation or when I'm walking through, I feel very, very happy. I feel very proud. People need to know more about Nssf because people think that money is being stolen, money is being taken away from them. Because like the first time I was told that I would pay 5% of my salary when I was working with Kea. I just was not amused. But then later, when I got the first batch of money I got, I was very excited. Nimpagira abakozi babike na Nssf abo kuba mu biro by'umisho nikija kubagasira nyo nimpura proud abo kugira ngo nkasevinga na Nssf.
Thank you very much. And that's just one of many stories. And of course, that could be your story as well. We have this joke where I come from in Kashari that we incorporate a lot of English words. So for example, for her, in Runyankore, we will say, Mbwenu fundamentally, she are you okay? So fundamentally is now actually a Runyankore word. So if you, no, seriously, if you go to any function where there are a lot of Runyankore, you always hear them saying, so Mbwenu fundamentally, yeah. And just so. So Mbwenu, fundamentally, the fund is doing a very good job, and we appreciate that in every way. There are really good stories, and it's amazing when you come down to it and think about what you can do for yourself in the space of 15, 20 years. Just that one by one makes a bundle principle, and what you can do with it as you grow over time. It makes a huge, huge difference, and that's what the fund is here to do. And that fund has to be managed properly. Like I mentioned at the beginning of our AMM today, don't forget, on Twitter, hashtag NSSF AMM 17. We'll be taking your questions and doing a Q&A in just a little bit. For the last 6 or so years, the fund has been focusing on being accountable and transparent in everything that they do. And that means that you have to have a leadership that is responsible for steering, the entire 8 trillion asset base in a very good manner. That leadership team is led by the board, and it's now my very great pleasure to invite our board chair to come. And please welcome with me Mr. Patrick Diabakama Kaberenge as he comes.
Our chief guest, who is still on the way, coming from the Ministry of Finance, our supervising ministry, honorable members of our parliament who are able to be present with us here today. My fellow directors of the board of the National Social Security Fund, Mr. Richard Biarugaba, the MD, Nssf, together with I've seen many members of the executive committee, the top management team of Nssf, and the general staff at Nssf, various heads of institutions and CEOs here present. Nssf members and many of our other stakeholders, including our trade unions and employers. Ladies, members of the media, our great friends, you have kept sending our message out. The representative of the Auditor General, Mr. Joseph Hiria, and the external auditors, Mr. Sadlu Kwago from KPMG. Protocol all observed. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. This is an accountability session for Nssf, which we presently do every year now. This is our 5th year. In an accountability session, there are usually 2 options. You can report the progress you have made, or you can also, the second option, make excuses for failure to perform. Ours here over the last 5 years has continued to be a progress report, positive progress. We hope the minister will come to announce the interest rate, because usually this is done a day or 2 before this meeting. We advised that it is sweeter if it is announced at the same time. And we sent our figure to the minister, who authorized the same through the National Gazette. So it is out there. And suppose the minister didn't come, we would not postpone because it is already officially out there. Bagamba batya nti n'omuko omu enkoko yagirya. So if you don't have all the entourage around you, you can still do certain things. I'm very confident we shall announce the interest rate before we leave this room, and when appropriate, we shall account to our supervising minister. Maybe at this time I should introduce my fellow directors with whom we are 9 on the Nssf board. This is our 3rd year now. We were appointed on the 1st of September 2015. We've done what I would call a solid 2 years of supervision and advice and commitment. And our tenure is 3 years. We are starting now on the 3rd year. And who are these colleagues? We are 9. I will start at the front table here. I think I can see at least 3 who have come to attend this function. Madam Penina Tukamwesiga, a lawyer, and the youngest member of the team. She gives us a lot of views which concern the 70% of our population concerns. We are always happy to have her. Next to her is Mr. Nelson Makwasi Wafana. He represents the workers from Koftu. A very committed gentleman, a quiet listener, but very committed to the work of the board. Next to him is Mr. Andrew Stewart Obita. Andrew Stewart Obita also represents the workers on the board and works with one of our largest investee companies, Omeme. And he chairs our finance committee. Is there any other words come? Okay, I'm the 4th. So we have 5 other members who are out there busy serving this country. But, oh yes, the managing director is here. Wonderful, wonderful. So 4 others, but if you looked behind your package, you will see the other members, the other 4. And in absentia, Mr. Pius Bigirimana, who is the PS Gender and represents the government on the board. Mr. Patrick Ochailap, Deputy Secretary of the Treasury, and representing government as well. We have Madam Sarah Walusimbi, representing the employers, together with Madam Florence Namata, she's the HR manager, I believe, with the Centenary Bank. For various reasons, they are not with us, but they have been wonderful in the work of the board at Nssf, the 10th board. Ladies and gentlemen, as you've been told by the MD, Last year was a tough business year in the economy, but as they say, when it gets tough, the tough get going. And we also managed to paddle through that relatively harsh, challenging economic environment. And I can say we came out quite well. In the region, and that is East Africa region, where the regulator, UBRA, Uganda Retirement Benefits Authority, they give us, according to that UBRA law 2011, they give us areas where we can invest with the main aim of keeping the money within the region. So within East Africa, and East Africa, that includes Burundi and Rwanda, Kenya, Tanzania, ourselves, and as you know, of recent, the South Sudan. In the region, in the social security institutions equivalent to Nssf Uganda, Nssf Uganda is unrivaled and is the #1 social security fund of all the 5. As you've been told, the financial position of the institution kept growing. Last year, we left when we were 6.5 trillion. Now today, we are about 8 trillion. Clap for yourselves. This is your money. This is your money. And for those who are not very conversant, maybe they have recently come to invest in Uganda, when we say we increased by about 1.5 trillion shillings in this international currency, we can talk of $400 million plus. So the last year on our balance sheet, we were able, through contributions and dividends, investment returns, we were able to add on another $400 million to your institution. The members, mainly in the private sector, continued to post their confidence to Nssf. And I think also it was a signal to the leadership at the fund, both at board level and top management level. Almost 150,000 other Ugandans joined to register and save with the fund last year. We committed ourselves, I think now it could be about 3-4 years, with the advice of experts in actuarial science, and we shall continue reviewing this matter. We promised to the members and savers of Nssf that apart from keeping your money safe, your capital saving, we would ensure it is protected against inflation, and it would also yield a modest profit return. We are still committed. We are still committed, and when we talk of inflation, we make usually a 10-year average. And I think the last 10-year average of inflation was 8%, 8.6%. So our promise, we said we must pay you returns, credit your accounts, money beyond 8.6, and we are still committed to that. The minister will subsequently announce the 8.6 plus a modest profit. That continues to be our promise. We continue to make judicious investments of your money. You know, there was a group of people in the Bible that were given some money to keep by some investor. And the investor went on safari and came back and asked for his savings. Accountability session like we are having today. And the first one came, said, "Oh, you know, sir, I really kept your money very well, deep in a hole, covered with polythene and everything, and it is here. Like you gave it to me, here it is, XXXX Uganda shillings." Another one came and said, "Oh, me, I kept the money, but also used it to do some other little business. And you know, you gave me 4x, I've now brought 5.4x. And the investor was so happy. He said, "You are the right one, like Nssf." And the other one who had kept deep in the hole said, "Even that one." I gave some return to this. He said, "You know, thank you for working hard. Also take some and keep investing it." This other one said, "Now even the little you are having, I want it all back." So we follow that biblical principle. We don't want to keep your money just in a commercial bank X and Y and Z. We want to use it judiciously, but without unduly risking your capital sum. I think members, you better take that message, because our members have been coming to us saying we want as high as possible. Lovely. But do you know, they say risk and return are related, but also a very high risk can also mean a high loss. You can lose your capital injection. So we don't want to lose your capital injection. I think keep demanding for your return, but also saying we must ensure our capital is preserved. So judiciously, we have kept investing, and this year now, we are planning to invest out of the 80 trillion. We want to invest about 0.6 trillion slightly less than 10%. Actually, 570 billion. We want to invest it in real property. There is a housing problem members have continued to express to us. And we think we can be part of this national solution. Like many similar schemes globally have participated. Provided we do it judiciously without undue risk of loss. We want to go building houses for you and for this economy. 2 days back, we were commissioning a mega project in Lubowa, where we have nearly a 1 square mile piece, and we want to put there just under 3,000 houses. 3,000 houses, which you can access through the banking channel. We don't want to build these 3,000 houses and just distribute them to members. We would love to do so. But we want to build them and sell them for a modest profit, which profit we shall bring back to you. But priority, I believe, should be given to members. If you come and you say you want to buy this house and you have a membership number, it would be lovely for us to see that you are getting a facility but also getting a return. So we want to leave this tokenism of building 3 houses in place X and 5 houses. They say that those are Nssf constructions, when we are told there is 100,000 houses deficit in Kampala alone. And you can tell the stories, at times the challenges you get in building houses for yourselves. So we want to go and lead this construction sector, but judiciously and at a modest profit. And all I can say, keep following, and we shall continue reporting to you. We think these houses in Lubowa will be finished within the next 3 years. 3 years is not a long time. Some people take 10 houses to build a house, but you, Nssf, have the capacity to finish these houses in 3 years, and your board and staff will do it. Nssf has a strategic plan which was made the other year, 2 years ago, where we said we are going to grow. And for those who follow corporate life, Nssf continues to be one of those growing companies, institutions, organizations that are going to make a difference and contribution towards the Uganda Vision 2040. Because if you look into that vision, there are various social security mentions in that plan, and we think through our action there is a way we can contribute in making Uganda transformed. And our plan is to grow the fund up to 20 trillion Uganda shillings by 2025. And we think through your support, and if the law is appropriately adjusted and amended, Nssf can perform much, much better at twice or thrice the current capacity it has today. And you've heard of the debate about social security or pension sector reforms. Yes, we are pushing very hard for those reforms to have midterm access, but we thought there is a low-hanging fruit the country can pick by making small amendments in the Nssf Act, by making small amendments in the UBRA Act. Those two acts, if well reviewed, can offer solution to nearly 80–90% of our current challenges, including midterm access. And those of you who have been following the debate, actually, in this pension sector reform bill, the main challenge which was there and which was pointed out by the World Bank was having a funded scheme for the 500,000 public sector employees. That was the main challenge, not Nssf. So keep following that debate, but we are telling our supervisor, the Minister of Finance, and we have put it in writing, that review of the Nssf Act and the UBRA Act can take us very far in operational efficiency and returns and the well-being of our members. I felt we should mention that so that we move at the same pace with our members. The board, Nssf management, in their quest to grow this fund, and we are saying that a team out there must be value adding all the time. They should be facilitators and enablers to member solutions and not obstacles. The board will not hesitate to caution or even put on the wayside any person who will want to stand in the way of the objectives of the organization or the growth of Uganda in general. With less than $1,000 per capita per person, I think it's still shameful. I know many members in this hall could be earning $20,000 per annum per person, but I want to say you are the selective few. You are the selective few, and if you are going to enjoy your little earnings, you better ensure transformation countrywide, so that even people in the villages out there can make a difference and a good quality, decent life. Otherwise, they will come and spoil what you are earning here. So together, we start with Nssf, but I always remind our friends that let us look at Uganda in general. We are talking of moving to nearly $10,000 earnings per person per year by 2040, and at least more than 1,000 or 2,000 by 2020. This is not such a big deal. This is not too much, provided we are organized and stable. So, the staff, the board is there for you. And for the members, you know your board is doing its best to ensure your interests are met. I think now that the minister is still on the way, I will step down and consult to see what we can do to ensure the minister's message is delivered and the technical pronouncement of an interest rate for the last financial year is also announced. Otherwise, I wish you nice deliberations. I thank you so much for coming. You are only a sample of 1.8 million savers at NSSF, but you are a quality sample. And we know you will take back the message properly. If you have any questions, please bring them. Either say them out at an appropriate time while we are still here this morning. If not, contact us as soon as possible so that we can even consider those suggestions and ideas out of this meeting. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, as a board chair. Let's give him another big hand clap. I'm guessing maybe I should call you Pastor Patrick. A very interesting story about investment. I'd never thought of Jesus as an investor until today morning. And in case you hadn't caught it, by the way, the story he mentioned about the investor who gave 4x's was taken from the parable of the talents in the Bible, so very interesting. Thank you very much, Patrick. Some highlights from our board chair's presentation, starting at the very tail end of your presentation. You talked about us making slight amendments to the Nssf Act. That word amendments has become a problem in this country right now, so I was a bit scared when you mentioned it. But what I got from your message basically is, as far as the Nssf Act is concerned, we are allowed kujikwatako. The Nssf Act, that is, right? So that one, tujajikwatako. The Nssf Act, please, I repeat. But it's very interesting. And also, thank you very much for introducing the members of the board who are here. If anything goes wrong with our money, we know where you stay. I'm just saying, on behalf of the members, just so you know. So I think that is, thank you very much for pointing them out to us so we know where to point in case of anything. I've been serving with the NSSF as a member now for, I think, going on to 18 years now. Don't be fooled by how young I look. It's just very deceptive. And I remember my very first contribution as an employee of Monitor Publications back in 2000, straight out of the university. And it's gone on to grow exponentially over the years up to now. I'm still a member, contributing now under a new company in Uganda called Nssf Sports, who are my current employers. And it's interesting how every time I log into my NSSF Go app and look at how the money is sort of growing, it's a very reassuring feeling to know that, you know, there's some very good progress being made for myself. And thinking about my two young boys, you know, who are 5 and 2 now, and the fact that no matter what happens, based on the way things are, there is something for them to look forward to. And that's why it's very important for, I think, especially for me, very excited about the idea of voluntary contributions, that even if someone shouldn't have to put a gun on your head to think about your future. That's why we talk about a better life. One of the things that you will notice is that when you add small things, the numbers become big. We've got 1.7 or so million members contributing to the fund. Some of them putting in as much as maybe 10 million, some of them putting as little as, now we have provision for as little as 5,000 shillings. But the thing is, when you add all of that up, it becomes a really nice, huge chunk that can be used to do some very incredible things. I did some maths on my phone, and I took the 8 trillion shillings that we have as assets in the fund and tried to spend it. And here's my results. So I decided that if I had that kind of money as an individual, well, I would have arrived, obviously. But what I decided to do was, 1, no more working, 2, I would just chill and do nothing, absolutely. And my entire life would be based on spending money. That would be my full-time occupation. And I thought to myself, how much money would I probably spend? And I was thinking, probably travel to Liverpool every weekend to watch Liverpool playing, as painful as it might be. But my projection was based on spending 10 million shillings every day. Would you like to know how long it would take for me to spend that money? I tried. So I included my kids and their kids and their kids, and the money was still there. Long story short, if you try to spend 8 trillion shillings, spending 10 million shillings every day, every single day, and you're spending 10 million shillings, it would take you a total of 2,160 years to spend that money. I think that deserves a big hand clap. That's how much money we have. If you're spending 10 million shillings a day, it will take you, those are 2 millennia, right? So Jesus would probably come back, go back to heaven and come back again, and you still haven't spent the money. And I think that shows how much progress we have made, and it's an amazing job, and I think the team at Nssf and the board deserve a big, big hand clap for doing an amazing job. And part of that requires constant feedback from you as members and well-wishers and stakeholders. And we'll be doing a Q&A session in just a little bit to try and hear from you. And whatever questions you might have, and I think he mentioned it, the chairman, you'll be free to ask without fear or favor. You can ask anything. If you think your money is being misused, feel free to ask. Richard will be on the spot, the board will be on the spot, and they can respond to those queries and make sure that you are comfortable and have the reassurance that your money is being used for the right purpose. The other thing that I will ask for the people who are with us here at the Serena Hotel is that we have put some forms on your table. So if you look on your table, there's a feedback form, and we are kindly asking you to please share some feedback regarding the annual members meeting. Your thoughts in terms of how we're doing, your thoughts in terms of how the fund is doing, your contributions and suggestions will be very welcome. And then you can either leave that at the table when you're leaving or hand it off to one of our ushers at the end of the session, so we can be able to improve continuously as we look forward even unto next year. And of course, if you have any questions and are not with us, you're joining us on TV, on NTV and on NBS. Thank you so much for following the annual members meeting. You can join us on social media, and our hashtag is NSSFAMM17. That is hashtag NSSFAM17 if you have any questions or want to ask anything, and we'll be doing a Q&A session in a little bit to try and pick up those questions and make sure that your queries and concerns are very fully catered for. As we look forward to what should be a very exciting period regarding your money and what we've been talking about, we shared a very interesting story earlier of someone who has benefited greatly from being a member of the fund and what she received. Why don't we take a look at yet another story of someone who has had extremely amazing benefits because of being a member of the Nssf, and then we'll get into your Q&A session in just a bit.
emitwala singa gavumenti ejjanizigula bafugula bakyatugula bubi ku nusu bisatu ze miliyoni 12 kakati kontu ki afuna ekintu kino n'atasekaseka akanzigula baseka nalifuna emitwalo 8 ne batereka ssente kakati nga batimako ki batimako ssente emitwalo 12 buli mwezi ne batereka nagenda okulaba nga batugamba nti batuyimiriza okukola emirimu nenkwata obukadde 6 buli nafuna mu NSSF bazanguyo zisasula nga ngenda ngula obuveera bwa miliyoni 3.5 nga tuteekamu ettaka batunateekamu ettaka nga nsimba kooko nga akula bwe yakula nga ngenda mutunda mwene operation wealth creation ezaali obukadde 6 bansasula miliyoni 45 nengamba katonda wange kino nga kyajabu nga tutesa ne madam tugule ka pick up nengula ne water pumps nengula irrigation machine nengula fertilizers nenteka ku nimero nebala bweti at the same time nengula obuveera obulala nenyongera kooko bagenza okunsasula ogwokubiri bansasudde miliyoni 92 lwaki sikola break dance olwa nssf kyenva ngamba bannange bonna abakyali abakozi bwoba okola emirimu weewaayo batebo nssf ate mune muwala wange olwokuba muwala wange mwagala naye nemugulira obuveera naye nakola nasale naye yayaka era naye nasale yiye nayo nene
kapito gwe nasookerako yali wa muzeeyi naye nga nina okugaziya kapito kyenakola nayogera ne muzeeyi wange ne mugamba sizoni eno esoose ngenda agulayo plot of land ne supplyinga sizoni eyokubiri nasuplyinga sizoni eyokubiri nenkwata nengulayo akamotoka we kali wali vista bwe namala okugula emmotoka eyo ne supplyinga sizoni eyokusatu nengamba sizoni eno ejje nga nzigyeko kapito nina okufunamu ennyumba tutenkanya n'omwami wange era bwendisipangisa ku myaka gino ate era nga nsuubira mu kiseera kitono nasapulaayinza era bagenda kumpa nkoleyo ekirala naye oli bwatunulira bwati agamba akaana ko sente kazijja wanze zange zava mu nssf ng'ate era muzeeyi yakoze eki yazimpadde
yameguliddeko kati wano kyetukola wantwanika tuba twandise kooko wano ate ekiseera kyekimu nga tulondamu foreign matters flat bills ki nga tumubaginga 70 kilograms then nga tumutwala mu container destined to Italy. Ebintu byenganyiddwa bukyanga nfuna seza NSF bingi kyasooka ng'abaana basoma ekirala nengenda ngula langi ne basiiga ennyumba yange ndoyagirabye ng'etemya ekirala nengenda musola naawo ekayunga ne bajja bantekerako sola bwe nvaawo nga maze okukola ennyumba emaze giteeka ku mulembe nengenda ngolayo okubaaja ne muwalize bakama bammwe abo bakozesa mutereke sente mu nssf bulyoke mufune muganyuwe nganze bwenganyuddwa.
I think maybe a bigger hand clap would be in order. It's still an amazing achievement. And pretty beautiful house as well, yeah? Looks, it's quite good. That's what you can do. One of the things I mentioned earlier is, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that in Uganda we have a really bad saving culture. And so basically, chances are, if that member had been given that money during this entire time and it's going into his account, chances are there would be nothing to look forward to. Show of hands if that is a true, accurate reflection of where we are as a country, right? And that's something that we can do something about. We'll be getting to our Q&A session in just a moment. But just to sort of liven the mood up a little bit, I think I have some microphones here. I just wanted to find out, when I walked out from the last presentation, the whole idea of having 8 trillion shillings seemed to have tickled a lot of people. I wanted to get just some quick insights into how your minds work. So if you had that 8 trillion shillings on your bank account, and there are people, by the way, in the world now who have that kind of money on their bank accounts, what would you do with it? I think 2 questions for me really. Number 1, what would you do with it? But also number 2, most importantly, what's the first thing you would do? Would you disappear from the world for a month? Would you No, seriously, I would like to know. So if I can have my microphones wherever they are, let's just take them around. Please put up your hand. We just want to hear some different thoughts from you. Maybe I should start with the members of the board. You probably already have very close to that amount anyway in your accounts already. So maybe you can start by telling us what you're doing with the 8 trillion shillings that you guys already have. Microphone is here. We'll start with the board, sort of set the tone. Please indulge us. We just want to know. Again, from our perspective, if you could please pass on the microphone to our Deputy MD. Geraldine, you won't escape. You have to tell us as well. So you've got, we'll even make it easy for you. We'll make it $1 billion. That's about 3.6. Yeah, about 3.6 trillion. So, Geraldine, do you already have that much money?
I don't really have that much money, and I don't think I ever will, and I don't really need it. But
speak for yourself. For us, we want.
I think I admire Warren Buffett and what he's done with his money, and people like Bill Gates. They've decided that their children will not inherit, so they have given a lot of it to charity and invested in the world to make it a better place. And then you keep a little for yourself and make sure that you finish your tenure on Earth, and that's it.
Oh, that's very interesting. Warren Buffett, actually, who Geraldine mentions, has been staying in the same house, if I'm not mistaken, since 1969 or so. It's a person who's a billionaire, and is still staying in the same house they were staying in. In Uganda, I would have probably bought out the whole of Kololo. Actually, maybe go and evict the president from Nakasero and tell him out to buy the hill. Move. What would you do if you had this kind of money?
Yes, that's a lot of money, and normally I like talking a lot, but Geraldine has almost preempted it from me. Definitely, if I have money, I think the people I'll look at is charity.
Right.
That's the way to go, because that's the only way you can give back to society. And that is the principle that we bring to the board of Nssf, and make sure that all the money that we collect is invested 100% and given back to the members. Thank you.
Wow. I hope both your kids are not watching, because it's going to be probably a huge loss. They're thinking, well, wait, that's not going to happen for us. That's a loss. Yeah. Very interesting thoughts. Charity. So we have 2 people who would give most of their money to charity so far. So we'll hear from the rest of the 2 remaining board members, and then we'll come to the rest of the room.
Yeah, it has been clear that most of the Ugandans survive on less than $1. So I'll do my best to make sure that most of the Ugandans benefit from this money.
Okay, very well stated, accurate, politically correct. I can be honest with you, Ugandans wouldn't be at the back of my mind.
Okay, like 90% of that, I would invest it around the world. Yeah.
Right. That definitely helps a great deal. Let's go around. If you don't mind, just want to indulge, please put up your hands, and we'll bring a mic to you just quickly. Do share some thoughts. What would you do if you had that kind of money? What's the first thing you would do? Would you disappear? Would you run mad? Would you go dancing naked in the streets?
Yes. Good morning, and thank you for giving me the chance. I think the first thing I will think of is secure the future of the children in terms of education, and then whatever they can get. And then 2, I will create employment. I think the 2 examples you have taken is very wonderful, because those people are employing Ugandans. And if we can create more employment for Ugandans, we shall make Uganda a better place. Then thirdly, which is unethical, I will try to see the people with greed in Uganda who are causing mayhem and suffering for the people. By their will, they get out of politics and people live happy. Thank you.
That's an interesting one. You mentioned securing education for the kids. With that kind of money, you can probably buy a university and put your kids in there. Right. We have someone on this side. Actually, I think the Ibrahim Mo Foundation is sort of doing what you were talking about already by offering an opportunity for people to actually, be able to go away and benefit from that.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Moderator. On my part, I would start by laying off maybe 5% of it for family and their future, and then the other 95%. I would plan to plant trees on all hilltops of Uganda.
Wow.
Thank you.
That's amazing. If I can just ask, have you planted any trees so far? How are you doing?
To date, 37 hectares. Those are above 100 acres.
Hey, you're making very good progress there. That's very, very impressive. There is a lot of hope for us after all. Every single contribution so far has suggested that there would be some sort of reinvestment into the future, not only for us as individuals, but for the greater good, which is what it's all about. I think we'll take one or two more and then move on.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Robert Chanwat. In a country like Uganda, where we have too many poor youth, and the potential for agriculture is too high, where people are even traveling from outside to come and invest in Uganda. And when I look behind, they're still living, majority are living grass-thatched houses. Now the best place to do it with this money is to invest. And the investment which will, one, improve on agricultural production and processing. The second place is to invest in houses so that people can live in decent houses. Currently, our mothers who are married are suffering. They're sharing houses, the single room with the children, with the goats, with the rats and everything. And we need to relieve them. Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, I think most of them, the biggest threat is not even the goats or the cows, it's usually the co-wives being in the same house. That usually causes the biggest amount of problems. We'll need to wrap it up for now so we can move on. The shoelaces to be able to invite our guests. I'll ask our chair of the board to come and invite our Honorable Minister to do the most important bit for today, which is for you to find out, for us to find out what our interest rate is going to be for the last financial year.
Dear friends, the Minister and her other colleagues have been very busy over the whole of this week, as you know. But within her very busy schedule, and she is now the acting Minister of Finance, Madam Evelyn Anite, you are very much welcome. We've been waiting. You are our supervising minister. We are waiting for two things from you, madam. One is to hear your remarks. Secondly, as required by the law, is to announce in your scientific way here the interest rate to be given to the members. Together with the minister, I want members also to welcome Mr. Patrick Ochailap, Deputy Secretary to the Treasury, who is acting Secretary to the Treasury as of today, and is also a member of Nssf board. He has also come to grace the occasion. We want to thank you so much. Madam Minister, the people of Uganda are waiting for your remarks.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How is everyone? Can you first forget about the political parties and the politics and we focus on building our nation? So when I am done with building the nation, then we'll discuss politics. Let us just keep this to building ourselves and focus on developing our nation, because politics, I know politics, we will talk politics. We did a lot of politicking this week. I feel it's time that we really try to calm down and focus on building our nation. Once again, good morning, everyone. My name is Anita Evelyn, the Member of Parliament for Koboko Municipality, the Minister of State for Finance in charge investment and privatization. But I'm here in the capacity of Minister of Finance and Economic Development. I'm representing my senior colleague who sent you warm greetings. I thought you were going to clap for him. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me pleasure to preside over the 5th Nssf Annual Members Meeting. I wish to commend the fund for consistently calling this important event to report on the year's performance and listen to the feedback from the members. You are showing the transparency and accountability that are aligned in our country. This practice should remain an integral part of the fund's consciousness, and I encourage that other public institutions do emulate this model. Ladies and gentlemen, can we clap for the board and management of Nssf? I am glad to note that the Auditor General has for the 7th year running given the fund an qualified opinion regarding the financial statement for the financial year 2016-2017. I expected a louder hand clap for Nssf Yet again, the fund is in a commanding position, keeping books of accounts in accordance with the international financial standards. Ladies and gentlemen, the economy went through a difficult period over the last financial year. In fact, we received the growth projections of 4.5% from 5.5%, and finally achieved a growth of 3.9%. This was commendable. Ladies and gentlemen, let's clap for this fund. If you compare the fund in Uganda with our regional peers, and indeed the African continent, this fund, National Social Security Fund Uganda, has performed the best. Ladies and gentlemen, that deserves a hand clap. It is important that we keep in mind that the Ugandan economy is a very strong economy, which is why the fund has been able to actually outperform the economy. For instance, growth, assets under management by 20% from 6.59 trillion to over 7.9 trillion. Growing member contribution by 17% from 785 billion to 917 billion. Its revenue by 35% in revenue from 674 billion to 912 billion. It is imperative performance, very impressive and impressive performance. Ladies and gentlemen, let's clap for Nssf. And it will be reflected in the interest rate that I will declare shortly. To Nssf board and management, this is not the time to bask in your performance. However, you can do it a bit. Board management, you can stand up and bask in your glory of your performance. We look forward. Thank you very much. You can take your seats. We look forward to even better numbers next year. More importantly, the fiduciary responsibility invested in you requires you at all times act in the best interest and the sole benefit of the members and the country in general. To you, members of the fund, who have come in big numbers, now it's time for us to clap for you. Let us first clap for the members who have come here. have good news. Like you always know, I move with good news. I have good news for you this morning, ladies and gentlemen, regarding how your savings grew over the last financial year. And now is the time for me to declare, in exercising my powers, or the powers confided upon me by Section 35(2) of the National Social Security Fund Act, and after consultation with the Board of Directors, I want to take the opportunity and honor to declare the fund Richard, what should I do? Where are the figures? Members of the fund, are you ready for this? %2.23% annual interest rate. Clap for yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. I told you I move with good news, huh? You can clap for yourselves once more. Ladies and gentlemen, the new rate of 11.23% will be calculated and credited on the balance outstanding on the members' account as at 1st July 2016 in accordance with the provisions of the Nssf Act. This rate I have declared today is slightly lower than the 12.3% that we declared in the previous years, mainly due to the difficult economic and investment environment in which the fund operated. Nevertheless, this is a very good rate, and this is why. I need to give you why. This is above the 10-year average rate of inflation, now at the 8.678%, meaning that the savers will earn a real return. Savers, you can sharpen your appetite to earn more and a better return. It translates into 681 billion Ugandan shillings that will be credited to the members, compared to 606 billion Ugandan shillings that was paid out the previous years. A 12.4% increase in actual numbers. Nssf members will earn 75 billion Ugandan shillings more compared to the previous years. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to applaud the fund for ensuring that members' savings are not devalued by inflation. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I should mention that the government of Uganda, under the able leadership of His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, is committed to two things. And these are our commitments, ladies and gentlemen, if you can just lend me your ears. The responsibility of governments to respect, protect, and ensure fulfillment of the rights of social security of Ugandans. 2, responsibility to ensure a conducive microeconomic environment where entities such as Nssf can thrive. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much for listening to me and throwing politics out of this room. God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Madam Minister. I was scared you're going to say thank you so much for not throwing me out of the room. No, you knew that's a very good thing. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's official. Our interest rate for the financial year ended 11.23%, and I think that's an amazing return, which is a very, very good job. Well done by the team at NSSF and of course by the board as well. So it's now time to hear your thoughts. In case you've been following the publication and communication regarding our annual members meeting for this year, we've been asking that you get in touch with us and let your voice be heard, that you share your thoughts. And you can do that here where we are at the Kampala Serena Hotel. You can also do it online. Our hashtag is NSSFAMM 2017. That is NSSFAM17 as the number 17, and you can share your questions or comments or pick up on the very interesting discussion that we were having about what you would do if you had 8 trillion shillings. Some very interesting stories already making the rounds online with that particular narrative, and so you can join the discussion and be a part of that. I'm going to ask my board chair to join us on the podium, as well as MD Richard, and then we'll start our Q&A session. If you have any questions, please feel free. We'll have some microphones going around. Do remember, when we come to you, to tell us your name, what you do, and try and keep your question to under 30 seconds so we can take as many questions as we possibly can. Feel free to ask anything that comes your way. And of course, if you have a hard time getting through to the microphones, you can do it online using our hashtag, and we'll definitely come to your questions as well. Thank you. I'll ask my panel to switch on their mics. First of all, looking very good. Richard has very nice, cool socks. That's a trend these days. I don't know if it was because you knew you were going to be in front of all these people and on TV as well. If it is, well played. He's outshining the rest of us. The business, in terms of how we've done for the year, I'll start with Richard, I think, with the very first question here. Obviously, the interest rate for being announced this year a bit lower than last year. Someone could easily say you're just simply trying to sugarcoat it. The bottom line is you've regressed. You gave us more than 12% last year. It's now come down just a little bit, if you don't mind putting that into context for us.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid question. If you recall, during the presentation I made on the numbers, 87% of our income comes from fixed income. You recall that interest rates did go up quite dramatically, 2011, and continue to be up there. But what happened during much of last year is that the central bank in Uganda and a couple of other places, including Kenya, where there was an interest rate cap, basically signaled a lowering of interest rates. And that did affect the amount of investments that we are putting or the returns that we're making out of the fixed income asset class. So yes, we do acknowledge that the interest rate as a value has gone down, but in terms of looking at the benefit we've been able to give to members, given the circumstances that interest rates have actually come down, you can say that overall we've outperformed the market in terms of delivering on that return. If you also recall, one of our reasons for trying to diversify our portfolio is to make sure that our return is spread, so that if interest rates are coming down in the fixed income area, then we can go into equities, which tend to perform better when interest rates are coming down, and also real estate, which also sort of protects you against the inflation. So that's the reason why. But on a whole, if you can see the percentage points that have been dropped, and you look at the, in fact, I think the figure was at the start of the interest period, the CBR rate was around 17%, and it added around 10%. So that's 7 percentage points drop. But if you look at our return, they haven't dropped by that huge margin.
Thank you very much. I'll go to Chairman. In terms of, you mentioned something about amendments in the NSSF Act. What in particular do you think in those amendments will help the fund perform better, and why do you think that it will make a difference in terms of how the fund is performing?
Thank you very much. The obvious low-hanging clauses that need review, one is the empowerment of the board to do its work. For the time being, supervision of the of the fund is divided between the board and government. And that was according to the 1985 Nssf Act, which required that out of the top management, and top management today there are 12 managers, 3 key managers would be appointed by the minister in charge of the fund. That is the MD, the deputy MD, and corporation secretary. Maybe in the context of things at that time, it was in order. But corporate governance, global corporate governance has since moved on. That the board should effectively supervise, should hire and fire its managers. And government should find a judicious way of getting good quality board members who will make a difference and contribution to the institution. To date, the board can only effectively supervise part of the staff and not all of the staff. And no wonder you hear all the differences going in the press when you ask why one officer has not come at 8 o'clock. He will say, or she can technically say, you go and ask my appointing authority. You as the board, you don't have power on me. So such things, they need immediate action. Now, the board should also be empowered to judiciously know where to invest the contributions and even declare midterm access, like many countries have now done. I was recently attending a workshop at the World Bank on pension sector, and many countries now allow between 20 and 50% of somebody's savings, because to be accessed by the member. It is ridiculous for a saver to have 200 million shillings on his or her Nssf account and cannot pay 3 million shillings for his university daughter or son. That should be very easy, you know. So we need to get that flexibility to say, look, there is a cap up to this amount, or somebody says, I have seen a good house. They want 10% deposit so that they can give me a mortgage. And you have so much money lying, and they are waiting for you to access it when you are quite weak. When you are quite weak, and some people get their money, and soon after they don't use it very, very well, a lot of pressures. So it is good to give some of these savings at prime time. This has worked globally, and it can be done here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to pick up on that and maybe bring in Richard on this. I mean, obviously it has a lot of support. The downside to that is that, again, you run the risk of giving someone their savings. If they blow their savings, then they're going to get to 55, and they've got absolutely nothing. So how do you then create a perfect balance between being able to do what Chairman is suggesting while still following the mandate of the fund, which is to actually protect people against any such eventualities, to find yourself in a place where you're 55 and have nothing to do, nowhere to stay?
Yeah, Ben, that's a brilliant question because it impacts on the discussion that is currently going on with regard to the reforms that we require within the pension sector. Certainly what my chairman has just mentioned is a real issue. And I can tell the public that on average I get at least 3 or 4 cases in my office where members of my fund are and have got reasonable balances, but have got problems with their banks with regard to their mortgages, with regard to their properties, and with regard to illness, with regard to the misfortunes that happen with our lives, and yet they've got so much money with us and just can't utilize it. So I think the way to deal with it is to undertake the reforms which have happened elsewhere, and that is by basically looking at how much is required for pension, how much is required for midterm access, and how much is also required for things like unemployment benefits and so on and so forth. Of course, that discussion cannot be complete if we do not look at how much the member is contributing. So today the average amount that people get out of the NSSF is about 15 million shillings. So on average, that's, the person who is retiring today will be paid 15 million shillings. If you are to consider that amount, I don't believe it is sufficient to be able to basically deal with your housing problems, your unemployment benefits, and also deal with your pension if you are to retire to the age of 50 or 55. So what the discussion that needs to happen is how much should be put away for pension, how much should be put away for midterm access, how much should be put away for all the other benefits that we require, things like life insurance and so on. And that's why 15% in its current form, 5% contributed by the employee, and 10% contributed by the employer isn't sufficient to be able to deal with that. What the other countries have done is they've introduced a tiering system whereby tier 1, maybe 10% goes towards your pension, tier 2, another 10 or 15% goes towards your midterm access, including housing, and then tier 3 looks at some of the other benefits that you might want to do. But that means that you have to contribute more than the current 15% that we're contributing, and that would affect how much people are actually consuming, because as we already know, Ugandans aren't very good at saving. There's 15 million of us who are employed or who have some form of work, and only 1.7 million of those are contributing to NSSF, which is less than 13%. So we need to do more in terms of reform. We need to do more in terms of the products that we offer. We need to introduce that tier system that I talked about, and I believe that with that, with our members saving a little bit more than they are currently doing, they should be able to resolve all these issues that have been highlighted.
Thank you. I'll just pick up a question from online, from Ruth Naomi, in line with that, Mr. Chairman, and she's basically saying, look, sounds like a brilliant idea. You're frustrated, you want to do something about it. Do we have any sort of targets in terms of when we hope to get these reforms done? And I'll quote her. She says, we are so quick to handle certain amendments. Why shouldn't we be able to fast track some of these, which according to her are more important?
Well, fortunately, we have the minister still here. She's hearing directly from the horse's mouth, though you say in London. She's getting the feedback, the sentiments. We shall continue engaging the office of the minister and the Solicitor General. Is it Solicitor General?
Yeah, it's the Minister of
the Judiciary. Yeah. To ensure that the NSSF, the pension reform, it has been on since 2011. And the discussions and homework was being done since 2008. And for those who have been around the sector, the pension reform globally has been on since 1994. And some reform has already been made. The UBRA Act came out of this discussion. And we are saying, okay, that was some reform, but more should be done. It has been on now for 6 years. A few clauses should be fine-tuned. The NSSF Act is, I don't want to say stale, but largely needs a comprehensive review. And my target, I would love it this financial year, as a board. But I have stakeholders, to deal with the stakeholders. The ministry and the government, they have a lot of law drafts lying there. I think members, please help us. Go back to your members of parliament. Tell them, can you expedite this, and we shall work together to do the reform.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Honorable Minister, someone has sent us a tweet, and they say that apparently you seem to have a very good talent for getting things done, and they're asking that you add this amendment as to one of the things on your list that would probably get you a lot of marks as well.
She has given a thumbs up.
She has given a thumbs up, so we'll take that, that once we've finished whatever she's working on right now, she'll get to that.
I think suffice to say, Ben, that this bill is actually at committee stage, so it's been there for a while, and all it needs to do is to come back to the floor of Parliament with the input that has been input there, so that it can basically resolve the issues that are currently stuck within the sector.
Right, wonderful. Let's go on to some of the things that have been highlighted in the report, and then we'll open the floor. We'll just take 2 more online questions. Please keep the questions coming. Our hashtag is NSSFAMM17. That is NSSFAMM17. And we'll pick your questions and, of course, pass them on to Richard and to Patrick here. And then, of course, from the House as well, we'll come to you in just a few moments. One of the big things that both of you gentlemen actually highlighted in your presentations was the issue of low-cost housing. And the bulk of the questions actually coming to us online in regard to that. I'll start with the one coming in from Dels Rukundo, who is saying that your definition of affordable housing is a bit irrelevant to him, and he wants you to address that. He says you are talking about the houses that you're mentioning for the greater part will cost literally hundreds of millions of shillings, and he says, how on earth is someone earning less than 2 million shillings going to be able to afford a house like that?
Yeah, that's been a big discussion even within the fund itself. I can tell you that I am now a specialist on material building, because we've been able to try and figure out how to bring a low-cost house or an affordable housing into the market. A lot of this has to do with technology. Unfortunately, that technology is very expensive. A batching plant for a low-cost housing is in the region of about $5 million if we were to bring that into this market, and then to be able to then build a house in the region of between $20,000 and $30,000, which is meant to be like the lowest area. There is also the issue of acceptability of these houses. Ugandans normally want a house with brick and mortar. Unfortunately, when you put in brick and mortar, the traditional one that we know, brings the cost to almost 100 million shillings. So there is a big discussion going on, but as we mentioned 2 days ago, we are working to bring low-cost housing in our 2 big projects in Temangalo, where we have almost 600 acres, and also in Nsimbe, where we have about 830 acres. So we believe that those 2 large pieces of estate will bring us affordable housing for our members and also for the general public. The other one where we have been creative, I believe, is what we are calling the off-taker arrangement, whereby we provide people who are into construction with a guarantee for them to be able to raise funds and then to deliver to us houses. We currently have signed about 3 contractors, and these houses will be in the region of Mukono, somewhere in Wakiso as well, and somewhere on Entebbe Road, where we believe that low-cost housing again will be available. The houses will probably cost in the region of between 100 million and 130 million shillings. I know that is still a little bit on the higher side, but unfortunately the construction material industry in this country appears to continue to make especially organized housing quite on the higher side.
Thank you very much. There's a whole bunch of questions regarding the affordable housing, but I think most of them have been covered by the answers that you have given, so we'll probably skip on to something else. The one that I'll probably pick up on is someone who's saying that at the moment, in terms of your earnings, your real estate portfolio and holdings accounts for only 1%, and that is a bit of a shock to almost everybody. And the question is, in terms of your diversification, isn't it a bit of a risk to find that most of your income is coming from your fixed income assets, and how do we change that to make sure that you have a bit more of a spread in terms of your risk for that?
Okay, if you look at the numbers, the only our real estate balance was about 512 billion shillings. That, as I said, constituted about 7% of our portfolio. But although the figure shows 512 billion shillings invested in real estate, only 3 or 4 properties are actually earning us a return. The rest continue to be land and what I would call work in progress, which is basically bricks lying all over the place before they begin earning us that interest. So yes, it is skewed at the moment, but we believe that once the real estate begins to deliver, in other words, it's built and it begins to deliver rent, then that return should be should improve. But also don't forget that with the real estate asset, not only are you earning from your rentals, but you're earning from something they call capital gains, all right? When we bought the land in Lubo, as an example, we bought it at around 200 million shillings or 300 million shillings. Today, that value is about 600 million shillings. So even if we're just to dispose of the land, we'll make a capital gains of 100%. So there is value in that real estate. It's only that that value is not reflecting on the balance sheet because we've not sold it. And should we sell, as we intend to do once we've built, then that value is going to be come on board. So do not look at the rental values that we are currently earning to be the entire picture. The picture is hidden a lot in the value that hasn't been earned.
Right. Thank you very much. Let's open the floor to some questions. Please remember some quick rules for you. When the microphone does come to you, please do stand up so we can put you on the camera. We'd like to know your name and what you do, and restrict your question or comment to under 30 seconds. If you do go above that, I will cut you off. Please don't be offended. I'll have the microphone going around now. We've got a gentleman on this table over there. If we can get a microphone over to him. We'll start with you, sir.
Thank you so much, moderator.
Keep them easy.
Mine is just seeking clarification on the pending amendments. One, they have taken a lot of time, and they are saying they were in 2008. They might have even maybe outlived their usefulness and require incorporation. How was the involvement of stakeholders? Two, from the remarks of the chairman, you mentioned that when you benchmarked in some countries, you did find that at least the body remains alone and handles most of these workers' savings. But in projecting, how do we look at, in terms of financial implications and performance, where we have other infringement on the mandate of the fund, in terms of financial implication, how is it? Thank you.
Thank you very much. You didn't tell us your name?
I'm Vyakatonda Abdu. I'm a trade unionist from Koftu, one of the centers.
Thank you very much, Abdu. There's someone on the table here. When the shot will come to you.
Thank you. My name's Oprong John. I'm from a trade union from Noto. I have two questions. One was from last year to Obra, but allow me sometimes to develop it. Let me start with the MD. I've seen in your clip the cost, administrative cost went to 26%. And there's another slide with the green, blue, and red, which shows that to you are saying it is flat. But I see towards 2017 is going up. Then in your report, you also stated that the number of people you have so far paid, like tax and so on, but you skip. How much have you paid Ubra? We want to know how much have you paid Ubra since they came in.
Thank you very much.
Then the second one, just this one, since last year.
We will not break our rules. 30 seconds it is. I will not accept any more. Please understand.
There's a question for Obra since last year. Please kindly allow me.
Okay. 10 seconds.
Obra, you were born out of out of the law, that is the Minister of Finance. And Nssf is owned by the workers. How come that you want to privatize something which government does not have a share in it?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, John. I have to cut you there. I cannot break my own rules. That would be completely inappropriate. We'll go to the lady in the blue dress right behind her, and then we'll come to this side. We'll take that question, have them dealt with, and then come to this side. Thank you.
My name's Tino Helen Rose. I'm a senior council assistant. I'm just reflecting on the chairman board's communication. He talked of protecting the funds against inflation, and I believe inflation is an economic factor. I just wanted to be educated or given light on how the board is strategizing on protecting the funds against inflation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll ask my panel to deal with the questions that we've received so far. Please try and keep the responses as brief as possible so we can take as many. If you've already responded to one, you don't have to repeat it.
Okay. There was fairly, almost all of them are directed to my boss, so I will let him. But there was a figure, how much are we paying Ubra? I think the figure is, last year we paid, I think, 4 billion shillings. And the previous year we paid 3 billion shillings. That number changes because it's based on the assets that we manage. So as you will have noticed, now that the assets have gone to 7 or 8 trillion shillings, that number will go up this year.
Is it a percentage?
It is a percentage of the assets under management. It's one of the things we've asked government to review, because we believe that what Ubra is doing is punishing the industry for growing rather than providing them with a service. So I think that there needs to be a cap to these fees so that they never grow endlessly. There was another question from John about the costs. The number you quote of 26% is the growth in the costs, which I said was on the administrative cost, largely driven by the amount of investment we are putting in our staff and the legal provisions. But what you did not notice is that there are some cost lines that have actually gone down. For example, other operating costs have actually gone down year on year. But as a percentage of assets under management and as a percentage of revenue, those numbers are actually coming down, which reflects that we are growing much, much faster in terms of our revenues than our costs, which is the thing. So I think you need to be confident that management is very aware that operating costs can become an impediment. One of the things perhaps I need to mention is that this year we will be spending some money on buying a new computer system. That costs a little bit of money. So next year I'm giving you a notice that you might see a little bit spike, but that is a one-off, which means that going forward we shall then begin to see the efficiencies that result out of that new system.
Thank you.
I think the other things were for you, Mr. Chairman.
I will add on, including various other comments from some 5-10 minutes ago. The real estate portfolio is going to grow with time in context, but also whenever we want to invest in an asset class, we have to be judicious without fear of losing your money there. For example, pension towers, and you recall last year we said we wanted this building up, which has been stuck for the last 5 years. We've been judicious, we've followed the law, we've followed all the technical advice. We think next month, keep looking out, next month, this building will be restarted, and maybe 2 years or so, it will be your best building in Kampala. And when you had meeting of 570 billion being planned for real estate, pension towers is one of those things. Protection against inflation is two comments I must make. Inflation is a cancer, increase in prices. As much as possible, government manages monetary policy through the central bank. So the central bank there can increase the flow or decrease the flow of cash moving around to match with the production of the workers of the economy. And so we work in collaboration with other entities. For example, the main job of controlling inflation is the central bank or Minister of Finance. So we commend them for the work they are doing out there. Secondly, we ensure your money is protected against the cancer of inflation by paying you an annual rate, a dividend rate, an interest rate above that average rate over a period. We talk of 10 years now. Because if we said 1 year it is up, the other year it is down, so we take an average of 10 years, and we want to ensure we maintain and preserve your capital sum by paying you an amount above that interest rate. So that is how we protect your money against, so that when you come to get paid, and some people really, they have been coming to us, 17,000 Ugandans came to get their money last year from Nssf, and they were really grateful. And some monies are small, but some monies can be substantial. As many of you, when you tap on your phones, you know your balances. So that is the inflation thing. The other one, somebody said the Nssf belongs to the workers. That is largely true, but we follow the International Labour Organization tripartite model and arrangement, where they say in matters of social security, there should be largely 3 groups involved. The workers, number 1. The employers who bring in this money every month, and you give 5% of your salary, your employer adds on 10%. So you need to involve them in the deal. So employers are the second group. Then the third group is government. And on the board I was introducing a few minutes ago, we have 2 PSCs on our board to ensure our message can go to government as soon as possible. And that's why, Madam, we invited you to come here, among other things, because you are the guarantor of this social security. You are the main policy owner of social security in this country, according to the Uganda Constitution. So Nssf largely belongs, yes, to the workers' savings, but you need the strong intervention and participation of the employer and government and their board. This is a global suggestion model. So, yes, you are right, but you need those other voices and support.
Thank you. There's a question here online. Richard, I think will probably go out to you. This is Rebecca Auma. Please remember, wherever you are, you can send your questions. No matter how flimsy the question might sound to you, it might make a huge difference in terms of how Richard and the team at Nssf run the fund going into the next year. Rebecca Auma wants to know, she says, great job Nssf, but she wants to know, how can I be sure that my employer is depositing my money? She's had a problem, I think, for 6 months. And I'll tie it into Davis Damine's question as well, because he has never received a statement for 2 years. So is it possible that my employer is actually remitting my money, but it's not reflecting on my statement? How do I know? Or is it possible that my employer is actually deducting my money and not giving it to me?
Yeah. Brilliant question. And I never tire to sing about the solution. The solution is come and update your member details. Come and give us your telephone number. Come and give us your email address. And what will then happen is that every single month we will send you a statement as soon as money has been posted onto your account. We'll send you a message once the money has been posted onto your account. So the check for you would be, you would have noticed 12 months ago or 24 months ago that that SMS has stopped coming, which basically means money has stopped coming onto your account. So those who actually today have their statement updated, I mean their email addresses updated or their phone updated, they will get a free SMS, a free email from us, and that will basically trigger you. We've also got a platform on which you can whistleblow. We know that it is a very sensitive matter, whistleblowing on your employer once you are still working with them, because they might fire you in retaliation.
I don't think it's might. They probably definitely will fire you.
Yes. So what we have done also is to introduce this platform. In fact, we also reward you when we recover the money. Remember that. We give you money for reporting on your boss to give you your money, all right? So I'm sure it's a good deal. So I want to say it on national TV. Please whistleblow on your employer if they are not doing that. We'll come in and investigate. And once we find out that they haven't been paying this money, we will recover the money for you, and we will actually reward you for having whistleblown to us. But please register your details so that you can receive an alert message once the money comes in. And whenever it stops, that means that the money is also stopped, and therefore you can come back and tell us.
Thank you. I must also hasten to add that we have now an 80% compliance report, that 80% of employers, of your employers, are returning this, bringing this money, paying it in promptly. So we want to give kudos to the employers for supporting their own staff. It was 49% some years back. It is now 80%. And for those who have cash flow issues, we have said, no, don't despair. Come, we shall discuss. There is our sales and operations team that can discuss with you. If your employer, you have had marketing, sales difficulties of your products, we can shade you. We make an arrangement so that you pay within a certain agreed period.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Actually, we should note that right after our Q&A session, we will be recognizing the best employers across the country who have been doing an amazing job in terms of remitting their contributions. So we'll be coming to that. Let's take a few more questions on this side. We'll start here we'll start there and then we'll come to you, sir, in just a minute.
Thank you very much, moderator, and my appreciation to the management and the board for the tremendous work. My name, I'm called Olive Gidudu from COF2. I'm a trade unionist. And my question goes to you concerning the informal economy. I would like to find out how best you have planned for the informal economy, which is untapped resource, and that is where social protection is needed most. And also, if there is an arrangement, maybe it could be enlightened to the public to know how you have handled it. And number two, as Nssf, we would like to appreciate the returns, and more so the 8 trillion. And my question to you is that, have you ever thought of forming our own bank? And
Thank you. You didn't tell us your name?
My name is Olive.
Olive. From OFTU. Thank you very much. It's good to see the trade unions very well represented. Thank you for looking out for our money.
Thank you very much. My name is Asha Olson Owere. Moderator, I'm not happy because you overtalked and the minister left, because I have a very important question for her. But if there's a representative here, first of all, we agreed that the bill before Parliament must be withdrawn. And we had a meeting with all stakeholders. There were 6 ministers, including all the stakeholders. And I wanted to ask if the minister's representative is here. I want to know why that bill is still in Parliament. And yet we agreed that we amend Nssf Act, which we are now fast-tracking. All what the MD and the chairman is saying, we want what we are agreeing here to be put in that act, and should be done as soon as possible. For me, it is a directive.
I'm sure your directive will be very well received.
Now, I also want to inform members, I've just been in court. This money belongs to workers. You have had MDs telling us that 4 billion go to UBRA, and the other time they were denying. Now, that money would have accrued, would have gone to our interest today. Now, UBRA is just micing free money from us. Now, we are even saying Minister of Finance has no stake in social security. They don't even understand it. So the court today, they even failed to submit to the court, and the Attorney General has been ordered to file application before Tuesday.
Thank you.
Now, I want to inform members that the issue of Nssf, and I want to warn government, this is our money 100%. We don't have to romance with anybody.
Unless, of course, they are willing.
Just a minute. I'm a chairman general.
Mr. Chairman General, even you have to work within my rules.
Yes,
at this point in time,
yes.
I run this show.
But with my man, I don't romance with anybody.
I'll give you another 20 seconds and I will have to cut you off.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now, Chairman, I'm directing you. We want more interest. Last year you gave us 12, now you are giving us 11. And you are giving UBRA 4 billion for what? We don't have to play around with workers' hand money.
Point well taken, Mr. Chairman General. I need to come to this side. There's a gentleman over there, Andrew, on that table. He's one of the harshest critics of the fund, and I'd like him to come and share his 2 or 3 questions. After this, what we're going to do is we will be recognizing and rewarding the best employers across the country who have been very diligent in terms of getting the contributions of the workers to the fund. And then after we do that, we'll continue with our interaction here for you to be able to ask any questions. And of course, don't forget our hashtag NSSFAMM17. That's our hashtag if you're online. Andrew.
Thank you, MC. I greet you all. Andrew Muhimbise. I was invited by your management to critique your books. So probably I'm one of the few who have seen all your books. I mean the details.
If you could lean a bit closer into the microphone so everyone can hear you clearly. Thank you.
Okay, I was invited by your management as a friend of the members to critique your books, and I'm going to do just that. First, let me thank Dr. Enoch, who helped me with the physical accounting and economy staff. First, on corporate governance, these questions go to the MD, Deputy MD, the board, and probably the senior members. I applaud the 5th annual members meeting. This is an excellent foundation for corporate governance, and I will recommend that per section 33(2) of the Nssf Act, that the minister or the finance rep ensures that all of you members receive detailed books. Because I've noticed that today you just come here to hear the interest rate. You don't know the expenses, the incomes, other than the summaries. And they can always give you a PDF, because that section allows the minister to direct management. Then, on the board members, still on governance, there were only 3 board members today out of 9. The others came late, some have walked out. And it touched on the point of the general something, Mr. Were. Is your board working? If they can miss this big function, are they actually working? You should ask yourself that. To the accounts, contributions and benefit turnaround. I think you guys had a phenomenal growth in collections, and I must applaud the management team. In 2012, you used to collect 39 billion a month. To date, you're collecting 76 billion per month as per those records, and you had a record of 100 billion in June. Keep it up. And also, the reduction in repayment days are fantastic, from 36 days in 2012 to 10 days. You know, the time it takes for you to get your benefit. That is a good thing on your management part. Now the other sections, we can clap after. The other sections are on URA. URA has 1 million payee accounts. You guys have 800,000 active accounts. So even if they are doing a phenomenal job, there is room to improve. Because if 1 million people are paying payee, ordinarily they would also pay Nssf. I mean the active members. So Richard and Geraldine, you have some food for thought there. Then I noticed the benefit maturity is around 30% in the previous year. Meaning, for every money they collect, in a year they pay out 30. Yeah? And your membership demographic is as follows. 60% of your members are under 40. And the rest are above 41, 55, those are 40%. And on these contributions, because you will need to think long term. Because in 2050, these guys will be maturing. Yeah? At your rate of return, I don't think you'll be able to pay them easily. Now I go to the financials breakdown, and I'll start with the auditor's opinion. The auditor talked about a 42 billion historical tax dispute with URA, and that they didn't make the provision. Management should explain that. The auditor raised it. Then under the board notes, the board actually, I had them, talk about UBRA, but at Nssf, you are breaching UBRA's section 60 on 2, which requires a custodian. I think you have reasons, so you share with your members why you're contravening that. Maybe some fines come from there. Then on the income statement, on the main revenue streams, without looking at the other incomes, your interest income is 92%. That's 781 billion. Your rental income constitutes 1.4, which is 12 billion. And your dividend constitutes 6.2, which is 52 billion. On interest detail, the actual return on interest, and here I got the money invested in fixed income vis-a-vis the return. The return reduced from 13, reduced from 14.2, and it was 13.6, so there was a fall. I noticed that 90% of your fixed income is in government bonds. That is 1 year plus. It means you have resilience of revenue, so it will go on for some time. I think your long term is 1 to 15 years. And you benefited from the yield after the election, because government is usually broke, so they give more interest. Now on that still, there is something called fiscal risk. Because your income is concentrated here, and the biggest place where we invest is government, I think Nssf is perpetuating the fiscal risk. Because we are lending someone who is chronically indebted. The government is budget 12.3, that is 2.7 trillion out of the 23, is used to pay debt. And then there is something called treasury redemption. Out of the government budget, they roll over 5 trillion, and most likely a lot of Nssf money is there, because you had 4 trillion on your books, and the risk is here. After a long time, if the government is too broke, they will ask you to negotiate. And he talked about the power structure, who controls you, like it happened in Greece. And inflation is actually a real risk to your fixed income. I'll shift to rental income. The actual asset return again fell from 8.2 to 6.4. You have a massive work in progress of 320 billion, of which 245 billion is Loboa and 65 is Lumumba Avenue. These projects have been stagnant since July 2015, but I saw the chairman and the MD at the Loboa site, but it has been stagnant for the last 2 years. And from this figure of work in progress, you're potentially missing 20 billion in income. And we all know why those projects lack vested interests. On the dividend income, it's only income that actually grew in real terms. Your dividend income increased to 4.1 from 3.5. Your quoted income, I wanted to ask the MD on this, or the deputy, about banks constitute 30% of your dividend income. How have you prepared for IFRS 9, which is coming in effect on 1st July 2018? It's about provisioning fully for unsecured loans. Yes. Then on associate companies, we have housing finance. In there you complain that you have 50, so you have no power to do much. But I think you could do a buyout, or you could do a small buy of, say, National Housing, which has 1%, I think, or the Treasury, so that you have the power. But I applaud the finance you're giving to them, and I think Katamba is running it much better. Because a few years ago, Pride Microfinance used to make more money than the bank. Probably even Wazalendo was making more than housing finance. On Umeme, tell us about the concession, because right now, you guys are the majority shareholder in Umeme. Your concession runs out in 2025, and I saw press reports talking about renewing that concession. Tell us about the risk in renewing that. On Uganda Clays, I want to know about the 20 billion, your plan as the management of Nssf. Then the other is, of course, here, which is Serena TPS. And I got these trends. Your housing finance shareholding pays you 9% on what you invested, which is a good return. Then the Serena pays you 18% on investment. You invested 6 billion in Serena and you earned 1 billion. On other income, your miscellaneous income went up by 678% from 1.4 billion to 10.9. What was it, and is it sustainable?
I hope it wasn't drugs, obviously. When you make that kind of money, Andrew, I will need to...
Can I quickly answer your questions? I think, is there any other fundamental one? What we'll do is, Andrew has done a great job. We specifically asked Andrew to actually look at our financials. I don't know if you know Andrew. Andrew is one of these people who agitate an agitating shareholder who basically puts companies to sword, and we felt that it was a good thing to come actually and critique us. So what we'll do is that Andrew's questions, which are very pertinent, will be posted onto our website with answers. But I would like to deal with the ones that he's raised now.
Let me do the critical ones.
Just another 3. So that, because we are running out of time. Okay, just to let you know, we are on live TV, and the live feed is going to run out at midday. So we need to do the ceremony for our best employers of the year as well.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Then I'll skip some, but on expense I realized that your real estate has repairs and maintenance of 5.8 billion. That is 48% of the rental income. So, and if you add the security, it decimates all the income. Then on the tax, you guys pay corporation tax. You are the most taxed segment in Uganda. You pay PAYE and everything, but then I think only your benefits are exempt. And the SACCOs were given a 10-year waiver on corporation tax. Maybe you should ask for that as well. So I've skipped some there. I'll skip the assets. I'll skip this. Okay, I'll go to a section I call underbelly. It's very important. You guys went back and forth on the legal reforms in the Nssf Act. You know that would engender management stability. Because one of the things I personally noticed was the minister appoints the board, but the minister also appoints the senior managers. And I'll say it's something they should look at. I think Geraldine and Richard are a great tag team. They remind me of the Japanese fish story, checking each other. You can Google it. Then the liberalization bumpy road, which Richard showed would open the streams, because everyone has talked about these laws, but no one is saying how they are going to actually get them through. Then my other point is on like political risk. We have political entrepreneurs. Yeah. How does the board safeguard against these political entrepreneurs and the vested interests? Because some of your stalled projects are because some politicians are not going to get something. So you should tax your board to do that. Then the narrow investment options, there's a mismatch between increase in collection to investment. Then I also heard of a fraud case where some members' benefits were received, where a racket affects death certificates and they get that money. You have 800,000 members. Even if it affects 10 members, it is something you should take on and tell us about that.
Thank you.
Tell us about the Crane Bank areas that were talked about and how is that going. Then my last section is what do you think? It has 1 point. This is a proposal. You guys collect a lot of money, and it's because you have a great support team for the contributions section. You know, the SMS it talked about, the alerts. But the section that earns you money is the investment section. It's like an island. And I have met some of the greatest minds there. Ongodia, the mathematicians, Semakula, Kasato, Buya. All these guys understand the investment parts. And I suggest to Richard and Geraldine that you should feed your focus of where you make the money. Have an economic intelligence unit. Use big data. In other words, they would call it research and innovation. Have the smartest guys, let them look for the PE deals. Because of fiscal risk, you will not make a lot of money, and when your most clients are growing, you will not have money. You cannot sustain on the current where things are going.
Thank you.
On the houses, your average members have a gross monthly income of 850,000. That translates like 10 million a year, gross. So if you're to do housing for them, you're looking at a house below 50 million. He talked of the technology and everything, but you can get a way to work that out.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah. Then long term, your investment unit needs to be the preferred investment partner. Deals in Kampala exist. You can knock on MTN's door. The worst they'll say is a no.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Thank you very much, Andrew.
I'll quickly try to go through all the issues because we've run out of time. And I'll start from the bottom. Big data, brilliant idea. In fact, we are already doing a lot of work on big data. There is the Crane Bank areas. Obviously, we're in court like everybody else, waiting in the queue. But I must say that this relates to the expatriate staff that were brought in by Crane Bank, and these were actually being paid out of Dubai. So we didn't have any visibility of them in the local payroll. The fraud cases, very little value at risk because the fraud is actually people stealing their own money. People pretending they are dead and then taking their own money. Now, I know that it is a fraud, but basically these are people impersonating themselves and taking their own money. So at the end of the day, the liability is back onto the member because what the member has done is they've taken their money before. There is this issue of the narrow investment channel. I totally agree there are a lot of deals out there, but guess what? These deals, just like the stock exchange has suffered in getting good deals, there is a huge problem in this country about corporate governance. People do not want to undress, and I use that figuratively, their businesses because not everything that is in their businesses they would like to expose to the public. As Nssf, we will not invest in a company which does not have the ability to undress, and therefore that's why it continues to be a narrow investment space. Political interference, I know that that is an issue that everybody thinks about. To be quite frank, I've been at the fund for 6 years now. There is no political interference. I totally agree that the amendments in the Nssf Act need to be made to improve some of the corporate governance, as my chairman has just said, and I totally agree with that. You talked about the stalled projects. Those projects are now beginning to come to life. As my chairman said, pension towers next month. We did housing, the project in Lubowa this week, sorry. There was a question on tax and the fact that there were no provisions in in the financial statements. You remember I said that the reason we are building a surplus, which has now come to about 171 billion shillings, is to make sure that if this tax case goes against us, we'll be able to utilize our reserve. And there would be sufficient. Just to tell you, that liability is about 42 billion shillings. You touched on the issue of a huge investment in commercial banks and the fact of IFRS 9 that is coming into effect. We certainly have been able to mark that. The market has already marked that within the asset prices that we've invested in, so I wouldn't worry too much. You've talked about the failure of us not having a custodian. In fact, we do have a custodian. I think what you're talking about is that we do not have fund managers, but in fact we do have fund managers. But as we've always said, 78% of our investment is in fixed income investments. They do not require us to have a complex fund manager because we can do that in-house. We are in negotiations with the regulator to make sure that that happens. You've talked about the challenges with our investee companies of Umeme and Uganda Clays. We believe that we've got sufficient safeguards within there to be able to get our value should these companies go belly up. You talked about releasing the detailed books of account for our members. Yes, we do acknowledge that. We will, now that we've finished this annual members meeting, these detailed books will be posted onto our website and members can access them. But in addition to that, as we've promised, we will get your analysis where you have been able to analyze us on a detailed basis, and we'll also put the answers back onto them. And finally, there was the issue of the fiscal risk, the fact that we are investing a lot of our money with government, but also the future, what happens because of our growing payout rates. You're actually wrong on that because our numbers show that Uganda doesn't have that problem yet. It's a problem in Europe where the populations have aged and not enough people are contributing within the fund. Our numbers show us that for the foreseeable future, certainly during my reign, during my term, we will be able to continuously increase our contributions without necessarily impacting on our benefits. But as you can see, they're quite good questions, and I hope that we can give you the answers on our Facebook, and our social media and our website, so that all our members can benefit. Just as a final word, we believe that the fund is very safe. We've got a very good team, both on management and at the board, and that your funds will be safe and our returns will continue to grow as we've been able to demonstrate today. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much, Richard. You've definitely earned your lunch today. Those are not very simple questions. Just makes me realize that Andrew must have been one of those kids who got caned more than anybody else, both at home and at school, for asking all the difficult questions to the teachers, but questions that needed to be asked anyway. Just an interesting one on the issue of fraud and people faking their debts. I'm just wondering, so if a person brings a death certificate, manages to get their benefits from Nssf, if I kill them, then I can't be taken to prison, right? Because it's sort of double jeopardy. So if you know anyone who has stolen their Nssf money by presenting a fake death certificate, you can shoot them and you will get away with it. We're now going to go to another exciting part of our annual members meeting, and this is where we get to recognize the people that have done an amazing job in remitting members' contributions to the fund. And I'll ask a big hand clap for the MD and the chairman as they take their seats for a minute. I'll have them back here in a moment to do another function, but for now, we're going to start rewarding our best employers of the year from the National Social Security Fund.
Welcome to the 2017 Nssf Employer of the Year Awards. Every year, Nssf
NTV, turning on your world.
News Updates is brought to you by
Plascon, color your world.
We are not part of this. UPDF spokesperson Brigadier Richard Karimire dismisses reports that soldiers were involved in ejecting MPs from the House on Wednesday. Also coming up, floods kill at least 13 people in Nssf village as rains pound Rwanda